How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with The Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Monsters Season 1. Yeah, I recently went through and did a bunch of individual episode reviews for this series, but I watched all the Season 1 episodes and I want to take kind of a Season 1 overview. Monsters Season 1 ran from October 22nd, 1988 to May 27th, 1989, and had a total of 24 episodes. The show was created by Richard P. Rubenstein and Mitchell Galin, and it is an anthology horror TV show. Anthology horror, so every single episode is going to be its own new and unique story, and we're going to get some cool ideas. It is, of course, worth noting that Monsters is generally considered to be kind of a unofficial sequel series to Tales from the Dark Side. A really good classic anthology show. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But basically, when Dark Side ended, a lot of the people that worked on that show went over and worked on Monsters. And in turn, the two shows do have a very similar feel. And if you like one, you'll probably like the other. Now, the biggest difference between Dark Side and Monsters is always going to have a monster. That's really cool. I really do love the monsters. You get everything from classic monsters to twist on classic monsters to robots to aliens to weird little monster ideas that you'll never see anywhere else. Knowing that there's always going to be a monster creates a sense of life and energy in the show and makes it wildly entertaining. I really do like this concept, and it's a great way to unify an anthology series. Now, okay, maybe they're not all great. Sometimes you'll be with a group of just what seems like regular people, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm watching Monsters. I think one of them has a secret. And sometimes they just flash the scary makeup on screen for a second to show you the real form. Okay, maybe they don't all land, but there's a ton of cool costumes in the show, and a ton of cool makeup and special effects. And actually with the special effects, even though this show is low budget, they do find ways of pushing them, and we do get some cool moments, and a few moments of gore that I'm kinda surprised they were able to get on TV back in the day. Overall, this is a pretty cool show, and if you like Dark Side and want more of it, why not a couple more unofficial seasons? I will say this does share some of Dark Side's flaws. For example, it can be kind of tropey anthology horror at time, which I don't mind sometimes, but sometimes you can get too formulaic, like watching an episode you think is new and original and realizing it's just another morality tale or just another jerk gets his comeuppance. Some of the episodes can be that way, and some of the episodes have a little bit of cringy humor to them, but in general they're not that bad. But I do find that they took a lot of what they learned from Dark Side and helped apply it to here. Like, this is low-budget 80s TV, but in general they pull off quite a lot. You'll be watching a bottle episode, so one location with a limited number of cast, and to be honest, most of the time you don't notice until later because they kept you engaged and they kept it interesting. And plus, having that Monsters rule means they couldn't really cheap out too much and would have to deliver a cool creature. Overall, I really do like this show. Yeah, there are some misses and there are some meh episodes, but in general it's pretty good. It hits more than it misses, and the episodes are pretty wildly creative, and there is some really cool classic moments, so I definitely would recommend this, especially if you're fans of anthology TV. I guess, without further ado, I do want to talk about a few episodes. You know, some of the highlights of the series. I'll do top 5, and then I'll do some honorable mentions, and then I'll do the bad ones. But I only want to cover 3 of those, and I do want to say the bad ones aren't terrible, but we'll get to that in a minute. Number 1 episode of the season, the best one, Mannequins of Horror. Mannequins of Horror is based on a short story by Robert Bloch, and it's about this surgeon who is worried about dying, so he makes perfect, tiny, miniature versions of himself to carry on life after he dies. There's great stop motion work in this. Plus, the surgeon, because he's crazy, is not only in an asylum, but it's an asylum in a 1984 styled world. Great oppressive atmosphere in here. That's really cool. Second best episode is The Match Game. The Match Game actually has Ashley Lawrence in it, Kirsty from Hellraiser. You get some kids, they're in a haunted mansion, and in the haunted mansion they play the match game, where each of them lights a match, and as long as they can hold the burning match, they have control of the story, and they get to tell that part of the story, and when they drop it, goes on to the next kid. They start to tell this story about the house's former owner, and they get way too into it, and they start to suspect maybe he's real. Good atmosphere with a really cool special effect, but I really did love the haunted house and getting really into the story. It's pretty cool. Number 3 has to go to Holly's House. Holly's House, you get this lady who made a kids' TV show, but she's pregnant and might have to cancel the show to focus on her personal life. Holly isn't going to like that, and Holly is an animatronic kids show character. We get essentially a Five Nights at Freddy's character well before that was even a thing. Good, creepy animatronic episode. Next, I have to mention the episode Glim Glim, which is one that I was like, okay, this is kind of weird and cheesy at first, but it has really stuck with me, and Glim Glim has become like an iconic dark side character. Basically in Glim Glim, an alien crashes down, puts a force field over the town like it was Stephen King's Under the Dome, and most of the people die right away from this disease. The survivors live in fear of Glim Glim, but the little girl says, no, he's really just misunderstood. The monster in here is this big blob, not like the Blob, but like this big green lump, and you can almost feel the actor inside shuffling around. It's a cheesy costume, but there's something about this episode that just does work, and it's stuck with me for quite a while. Definitely a classic monster. After that, I have to mention the episode Where's the Rest of Me? This is a cool reverse Frankenstein story. The wealthy elite of this country are in a castle while the gunfire of the revolutionaries is outside, and they don't care. They found a way to harvest organs and be able to preserve them longer and have the organs work better. And they got this guy hooked up to a special serum, and they've taken organs out of him. Well, of course, he's going to get up because they give him too much of the serum, and he's going to want his organs back. So yeah, instead of Frankenstein where you build something out of the organs, here you take it away from this guy. And I really did like this one. It's a really cool idea, and I love seeing a twist on the classic monsters. Those are the best ones. There are some other ones that I do want to mention as well. The episode Sleeping Dragon almost felt like a Roger Corman creature feature compressed into a half hour. That one was really goofy and really fun. We also get Adrien Barau from The Fog in the episode All in a Day's Work, where a witch has to go after this guy's doppelganger. And then we get Linda Blair from The Exorcist, who's in the episode La Stiga, where a guy has to live with a witch for 2 weeks who he suspects might have put a curse on his mom. Always good to see Linda Blair. So those were the best episodes. But let's go ahead and talk about the bad ones. Now, as I said, monsters, like, even the worst episodes, I didn't think were that terrible, but there were definitely some misses, and there are some episodes that are kind of forgotten about. But the 3 that I want to talk about here, I think kind of exemplify some of the big problems with this series. So let's talk about these 3. First up, the Feverman. And the thing with the Feverman is it's super predictable. You get this guy who's a faith healer, and you get this scientist who's a skeptic, and is really annoying. And it's a super predictable episode that you know where it's going. Of course the magic is real and the skeptic's wrong, and the monster in this one I don't think is that great. The thing is though, this is the first episode. If it was just some middle of the series episode, I wouldn't have cared and I wouldn't have thought of it that much. The big problem here is that people who put the series on, they'll watch this episode first, and they'll probably think the series is just okay, whatever. Sadly, Monsters starts out to a pretty middle-of-the-road first episode, and I wish that this wasn't episode 1. Seriously, skip it. Episode 2 is Holly's house. That's one of the best ones. Just come back to episode 1 later. It's not the worst thing ever, but boy, should it not have been episode 1. The next bad episode I want to mention is Rain Dance. And again, this is a case of it being way too predictable. Basically, you get this couple and they're jerks and they're scamming the Native Americans and taking their artifacts. That's a terrible thing. And the thing is, though, these are the main characters we're spending most of the whole episode with, and it's just not fun to be with these jerks the whole time. And again, predictable, because they're going to get this artifact that's a statue of a death god that's about the size of a person. I wonder where this one is going. That being said, like I said, none of them are horrible. When the statue, of course, comes to life, it's super fun and creepy, and I really did like that. But this episode's so predictable, and there's no redeeming character in there that's on screen long enough for me to really relate to and follow, and I'm just kind of wanting to fast forward and watch them get their comeuppance. Again, predictable, but the monster's good. Anyway, the last bad episode I do want to mention is New York Honey, and that's where we have to talk about the humor. The humor in here, and this was a problem with Darkside, the humor is sometimes a little old and weird and doesn't quite hit, and in turn, sometimes when you get a humorous episode, you're like, oh no. But I do want to say, I think the humor is a little better than Darkside was. We don't get a case of the stubborns in here, which is really, really good. But that being said, the humor doesn't always work, and New York Honey is a good example of bad humor. You get this guy who thinks he's being super hilarious and pulling these weird faces, and he's basically found that his neighbor is growing honey in his apartment, and it's highly addictive, and he's wanting to go into business, and then there's a random seductress plot point that comes in the middle of the episode. It's an episode that thinks it's hilarious, and it's more awkward than anything, and it's an example of bad humor. But like I said, there are good humorous episodes this time around, like My Zombie Lover or Satan in the Suburbs, but it's just kind of this thing that I don't really like. So overall, that's the selection of episodes I want to talk about. Definitely, I would recommend checking out the ones that I mentioned as the better ones. Those are all really cool and worth seeing, but I do want to say overall this series does really work. I had a good time with it, and I really did enjoy checking in on this show and seeing what they had to offer, you know? Yeah, just know going in, it's a little on the cheaper side. Sometimes it can be tropey, but the idea that every episode's going to have a monster, it does lead to a unique and highly energetic feel, and I say check this one out. Anyway though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Monsters playlist, where you should be able to find my reviews for every episode of Season 1. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.